"Would you like to have dinner with me?" a soft voice called out, pulling the lonely CEO from his wandering thoughts on that cold Christmas night. It was Christmas Eve. The city sparkled with lights, filled with laughter, and somewhere in the distance, familiar carols drifted through the air. But to Daniel Harrison it felt nothing like a celebration. He sat alone on a snow-covered bench in the park, wearing an expensive wool overcoat and polished leather shoes that reflected the holiday lights, every bit the image of a successful, powerful young CEO, yet weighed down by melancholy. He looked up and caught sight of a young black woman standing before him, her smile warm and her gaze sincere. It was Maya Mitchell, a 25-year-old kindergarten teacher, though he didn't yet know that she was about to change his life forever. Despite the luxurious cashmere coat draped over his shoulders and the spotless shine of his shoes, Daniel could not hide the deep loneliness in his heart. His brown eyes stared into the distance, where the blinking lights twinkled like fragile illusions. It had been years since he'd felt any joy in extravagant parties, hollow well-wishes, or the polite but soulless smiles of those around him. He had even declined his parents' lavish Christmas Eve gala, an event where the wealthy gathered to talk only of stocks, investments, and social standing. To Daniel, it all seemed utterly meaningless, amplifying the invisible wound he'd carried since childhood. From the outside, he appeared to have everything: youth, good looks, and the success that millions dream of. But inside, he was consumed by a vast emptiness. He often wondered if life was worth living without genuine warmth, honest laughter, and a sense of belonging. A winter breeze drifted through, its bite seeping into his bones. Daniel pulled his collar up and clasped his hands together, yearning for a sliver of warmth. Yet no chill of the season could compare to the coldness in his soul. Memories of a lonely childhood, of parents who measured love in green bills and cared more about status than their son's happiness, flooded back, reopening wounds that never healed. From somewhere beyond, church bells tolled, heralding the approach of Christmas morning. Around him, people hurried on, their radiant smiles only reminding him of the unbridgeable distance between himself and the world. In that moment, he wondered if anything lay ahead for him besides solitude and cold. Daniel sighed, his breath misting in front of him. He gazed upward as soft snowflakes drifted down, landing on his coat like gentle comforts, but his heart remained hollow. Unbeknownst to him, in just a few minutes, a chance encounter would take place, an encounter that might change his life forever. Yet, in that freezing Christmas Eve night, Daniel Harrison remained utterly alone, a powerful man adrift in a world of joy he could not reach. Snow continued to fall, each flake dissolving into the air like a silent whisper. Daniel sat motionless, his deep brown eyes lost in thought, completely detached from the bustling world around him. He didn't notice that just a few steps away, a young woman was watching him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. That young woman was Maya Mitchell, a 25-year-old preschool teacher who'd just finished her evening shift at a small bakery near the park. Maya usually walked home to her modest apartment each night, soaking in the Christmas spirit, even if it was only the soft glow of neighboring windows strung with twinkling lights. She wore a well-loved but carefully maintained coat, a creamy scarf wrapped snugly around her neck, and her naturally curly black hair fell gently over her shoulders, lending her an understated, radiant beauty. From the moment she spotted Daniel, Maya sensed something different emanating from him, a profound loneliness hidden beneath his polished exterior. At first, she intended to keep walking, hesitant to bother a stranger. But as she passed, something within her compelled her to pause and look back. Maya stood frozen for a heartbeat, studying Daniel more closely. She saw the sadness etched on his face, the tension in his shoulders, and the way his hands clenched as if searching for a spark of warmth in the icy snow. Her natural compassion stirred. Maya knew all too well what loneliness felt like. Having grown up in hardship and prejudice, she'd endured many solitary nights. She understood that sometimes a single, sincere word could rescue a soul adrift in despair. Drawing a steadying breath, Maya slowly approached him. Her footsteps whispered through the snow, the sound swallowed almost instantly by the frigid air. When she was just a few paces away, she spoke softly but clearly in the quiet of the park. "Would you like to have dinner with me?" Her question shone like a small beacon, piercing the invisible barrier around Daniel. He startled, as though he could scarcely believe the invitation was meant for him. Daniel looked up, and for the first time in a long while, his eyes met a gaze free of calculation or self-interest. The warm, brown eyes of Maya. In that moment he froze, words caught in his throat. In his world, every approach carried an agenda, and every invitation concealed some ulterior motive. But this time, the genuine kindness in Maya's voice and smile left him with no reason to doubt. He stammered, his voice hoarse and uncharacteristically tentative for a CEO used to commanding respect. Noticing his hesitation, Maya offered an encouraging smile. "I know this might seem odd, but I believe no one should spend Christmas Eve alone in the cold." Daniel fell silent, torn between his habit of declining personal overtures and an unconscious longing to break free from the loneliness that had shadowed him for so long. He studied the young woman before him, her simple attire, her resolute eyes, and suddenly the merciless cold around him seemed to soften, replaced by a small spark of hope. At last, Daniel nodded. "Thank you, I'd love to." Maya's smile blossomed, as if she'd just performed a small miracle that Christmas Eve. She gave him a gentle wave, inviting him to stand and join her. Daniel rose slowly, his body as surprised as his heart by this unexpected decision. Side by side, they walked out of the park, a striking contrast in the wintry night. On one side, a powerful young man in an elegant coat. On the other, a humble but confident young woman. Maya's presence radiated warmth that, for the first time in years, Daniel felt as something real. Unbeknownst to them, a figure in a dark coat lingered in the shadows across the street, his cold gaze fixed on the pair with growing resentment. It was Vincent Harrison, Daniel's older brother, a man who prized status and power above all else. Vincent frowned as he watched his brother depart with a stranger, a surge of anger and discomfort flooding his eyes. Vincent knew that if Daniel formed a bond with someone outside their social circle, their family's reputation and their own foothold on influence could be in jeopardy. A plan to intervene began to take shape in Vincent's mind, sowing the seeds of the challenges that Daniel and Maya would soon face. And so, beneath the warm glow of Christmas lights and the gentle fall of snow, a story of love, healing, and daunting trials began to unfold. Would this fateful encounter be the start of a lasting happiness, or the first step into unforeseen turmoil? Only time would tell. Walking beside Maya, Daniel suddenly noticed the crunch of snow under their feet growing louder, mingling with his heart pounding as if it would finally shatter the icy barrier he'd carried for so long. Warm breaths drifted into the air, gently reaching Daniel's heart, a place that, until now, had known only coldness and doubt. He stole a glance at Maya. Her gaze was calm yet determined as she looked ahead. Her glossy black curls danced in the breeze, each strand dusted with pure, delicate snowflakes. It was her simple, unpretentious presence that stirred in him a feeling he had never known before. "My place isn't far," Maya said softly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Her warm voice seemed to melt the winter chill. "I'm grateful you invited me," Daniel replied, his tone hesitant but sincere, an unusual openness for a man who always guarded himself so carefully. Maya smiled, her gentle brown eyes sparkling. "I believe everyone deserves a little warmth on Christmas Eve." Her simple, heartfelt words struck deep in Daniel's soul. All his life, he'd kept a wary distance from anyone approaching him, suspecting hidden motives behind every polite smile and kind invitation. But this time felt different. There was no trace of deception in Maya's eyes or voice. She saw him not as a wealthy CEO to exploit, but as a man longing for genuine connection. He fell into step beside her, carried along by her steady pace. The narrow street where she lived appeared before them, a world apart from the opulent skyscrapers Daniel knew so well. Warm, golden lights glowed from tiny apartments, reflecting off the snow-covered pavement and creating an unexpectedly authentic beauty. Yet, not far behind, a sleek car trailed them, moving slowly and deliberately like a patient predator. Behind the wheel sat Vincent Harrison, Daniel's older brother, face hard and eyes fixed on the pair. Vincent's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, his anger and anxiety plain in every tense line of his face. He'd always seen Daniel as a pawn in the family's power game, and Vincent himself as the rightful heir to their empire. Now, Daniel was slipping out of his control, drawn to a woman unworthy of their social standing, unfit for their family's designs. If this relationship took root, everything Vincent had worked to build would be dangerously shaken. The car eased to a stop at the corner as Vincent watched Daniel and Maya walk into a small, cozy building. A wave of unease and irritation washed over him. He needed a plan, and fast, before this threat slipped beyond his reach. Inside Maya's apartment, Daniel felt an unexpected warmth envelop him. Pencil sketches adorned the walls, wooden toys arranged neatly on shelves, and a small Christmas tree stood in the corner, every detail reflecting Maya's gentle, loving nature. Maya helped Daniel off with his coat in a natural, caring gesture that left him momentarily flustered. He was used to fending for himself, keeping everyone at arm's length, but now, for the first time, he let someone else take care of him, if only for a moment. "This little place means a lot to me," Maya said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I decorated everything myself, and the kids at school stopped by to play." Daniel nodded, admiration in his eyes. "It's beautiful. It truly reflects who you are." Maya's eyes lit up. "Thank you. I believe everything is beautiful when you look at it with a sincere heart." Her words shone like a beacon in Daniel's soul, melting the ice that had long encased his heart. He realized that it was Maya's warmth and authenticity, her genuine care, that had stirred something within him for the very first time. Outside the window, snow continued to drift down, covering the world's old cracks in a blanket of white. But inside Maya's little apartment, a new flame of warmth had been lit in the hearts of two strangers, marking the beginning of a beautiful love story, one that would face its share of challenges in the days to come. As the apartment door clicked shut behind them, Daniel hesitated, standing still. He could feel the change in the air, a world apart from the cold, lavish life he knew. The faint scent of pine lingered, mingling with the mouth-watering aroma of roasted chicken from a small oven tucked in the kitchen corner. This simple, homey atmosphere left him strangely flustered, yet deeply comforted. Maya slipped inside with graceful ease, a genuine smile lighting her face as she quickly set the small dining table. Her hands moved with tender familiarity, as if every gesture sprang from the love she'd poured into this space. "Please, have a seat. Make yourself at home," Maya said softly, her eyes warm and welcoming. Daniel approached the table and paused, his gaze lingering on the photos covering the nearby wall. Bright-eyed children hugging Maya, and colorful crayon drawings rendered with awkward but heartfelt strokes. Each image radiated pure joy and affection, emotions Daniel had never felt in his own opulent home. "These photos and drawings," Daniel began, his voice trailing off in wonder. "Oh, these are gifts from my students," Maya explained gently, pride lighting her eyes. "Those kids are the sweetest. They remind me every day why life is worth living." A soft smile flickered across Daniel's face as a curious warmth stirred in his chest, an envy of the simple, abundant happiness this young woman enjoyed. Maya deftly lifted a golden platter of roasted chicken from the oven and placed a crusty, fragrant loaf of bread beside it. She sat down across from Daniel and looked at him earnestly. "It's nothing fancy, but I hope you'll like it." Daniel surveyed the humble meal before him. Though he'd sampled countless exquisite dishes crafted by renowned chefs, he'd never experienced a dinner so genuine or heartwarming. As he lifted his knife and fork, each movement felt perfectly natural, and he sensed his invisible defenses beginning to thaw. "This is delicious," Daniel said sincerely, locking eyes with Maya, not just because of the food, but because of who made it. His words brought a faint blush to Maya's cheeks. She met his gaze with a tender, unguarded smile. In that moment, the little apartment seemed to glow even brighter, not just from the meal, but from the genuine human connection sparking between them. Meanwhile, across town in the Harrison family's chilly mansion, Vincent stood silently before a grand window, clutching a glass of red wine. His eyes, cold and calculating, stared into the night as if he could pierce the darkness to track Daniel's every move. "Daniel, you've always been so reckless," Vincent muttered with venom. "This stubbornness of yours will cost you dearly, brother." Though their parents had always seen Vincent as the rightful heir, Daniel's remarkable success and independence now threatened him most. Vincent couldn't bear the thought of Daniel slipping from his control, or of some ordinary woman drawing him away from their carefully laid plans. If this relationship deepened, everything Vincent had built would be at risk. He turned, grabbed his phone, and called out decisively, "Find everything you can on a woman named Maya Mitchell. Her family, her work, every detail. Do it now." He ended the call, eyes flashing with icy resolve. Vincent was skilled at removing obstacles, and this time would be no different. Maya Mitchell would not be allowed to stand in his way. Back in Maya's cozy apartment, Daniel remained blissfully unaware of the danger gathering around him. He simply savored this rare moment of peace, filled with Maya's soft laughter and stories about her work and life, giving him a sense of comfort he'd never known. When dinner ended, Daniel sat back, watching Maya gently clear the table with affectionate care. He realized something new was stirring in his heart, a fragile seedling of genuine feeling, yet strong in its eagerness to grow. That night, snow continued to drift past the window, but Daniel no longer felt its chill. He knew that stepping into this little apartment had opened a new chapter in his life, one brimming with hope and trust, yet shadowed by the dark schemes that loomed just beyond their doorstep. Sitting in the cozy little space, the crackle of the old electric fireplace blended with the soft strains of a Christmas song playing on the radio in the corner, and Daniel suddenly felt as if he were sheltered from the cold world outside. His gaze drifted unconsciously to the gentle golden lights reflecting in Maya's deep eyes. In that moment, he realized he had never known a place that felt so peaceful. Maya took a small sip of her tea, her hands wrapped around the well-worn but carefully cleaned ceramic mug. A brief silence passed before she looked up, her eyes carrying the genuine warmth Daniel had come to recognize. "You know, I grew up in a small southern town where the color of my skin often made me a target for prejudice. I remember my very first day of school, being stared at, whispered about behind my back. Everything felt so terrifying for a 6-year-old. Her voice softened as she looked away for a moment, as though those memories still hurt after all these years. Daniel listened intently, his heart tightening with empathy for the pain she'd endured. "But I decided not to let it defeat me," Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. "I learned to face prejudice with love and patience. I became a teacher because I believe education is the best way to change the world around me." Daniel remained silent for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. He admired her resilience, but most of all, he admired her big, compassionate heart. He realized that in his life he'd never had someone like this by his side. "I really admire you," Daniel said softly, his voice honest and full of feeling. "Truly, Maya." Maya gave him a gentle smile, her warm, patient eyes encouraging him to open up further. "And you, Daniel? I see something sad in your eyes, too. If you want, I'm here to listen." Her sincere offer caught Daniel in the throat. For the first time, the walls he'd built around himself began to crack, revealing the vulnerable man he'd long kept hidden. He took a deep breath, looking down at his hands on the table, his voice trembling slightly. "I grew up in a family where money and power were everything. Love was not." Daniel looked up, his eyes shining with a pain he'd never shown anyone. "My parents always believed status and wealth could replace anything. My brother and I were taught from the start to win at all costs, even if it meant hurting each other." The image of Vincent flashed through Daniel's mind, his brother's cold gaze haunting every step he took. Daniel shook his head, trying to banish those heavy memories. "I've never truly felt loved. Everything around me was fake. Transactions disguised as relationships, and even family was just a stage for a perfect performance," Daniel said with a bitter laugh, his voice low. "Ironic, isn't it?" Maya watched him quietly, her eyes showing empathy, not pity. She reached out slowly and gently touched his hand as a comforting gesture. "You're not alone anymore, Daniel." Her soft touch startled him at first, but then he relaxed and accepted the warmth from her small, strong hand. His heart began to soften, as if healed by the sincerity and love he'd never known. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Vincent stood holding a file he'd just received. His expression grew colder as he stared at Maya Mitchell's photo and the detailed information about her past, family, and connections. Vincent curled his lip into a cold smile, his eyes full of menace and calculation. "Too bad, Maya Mitchell, you shouldn't have stepped into this game." He tossed the file onto the desk, grabbed his phone, and issued a chilling command. "I want more sensitive information. Find out how we can pressure her into walking away from Daniel, and do it as fast as possible." He hung up, his sharp gaze fixed on the darkness outside the window. He knew exactly what he needed to do to keep Daniel under his control, because he couldn't let his brother find the happiness that had always eluded him. Back in Maya's small apartment, Daniel and Maya sat together in peaceful silence. They both understood that from this moment on, they shared a bond stronger than words. Daniel knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but looking into Maya's eyes, he believed for the first time that he had the strength to face any challenge that awaited them. When dawn's gentle light broke after that emotional evening, Daniel stepped out of Maya's small apartment, feeling both relieved and uneasy. But that calm didn't last long. No sooner had he left the quiet neighborhood than his phone in his coat pocket rang insistently, shattering the fragile peace he'd just found. The caller ID glowed coldly. Vincent Harrison. Daniel's heart tightened. He knew the storm he'd been fearing had finally arrived. With a moment's hesitation, he pressed answer. "Vincent," Daniel said, striving for composure despite the ominous sense in his chest. "What do you think you're doing, Daniel?" Vincent's voice crackled with fury and disdain. "Dating some anonymous teacher with no pedigree. Are you really planning to tarnish our family name?" Daniel froze, breath catching in his throat. He'd expected pushback from his family, but the cruelty behind Vincent's words still startled him. "This is my personal life," Daniel replied evenly. "I will decide my own path." Vincent laughed coldly. "Your path? Don't forget everything you have comes courtesy of Mom, Dad, and me. Snap out of it, little brother. Don't throw away it all for someone who can't even get our name in the papers." "Don't speak of her that way," Daniel growled, anger flaring for the first time. After a tense pause, Vincent's tone turned even more frigid. "Fine. If you want to play this game, prepare to give up every privilege, every ounce of status and inheritance. Mom and Dad will never accept someone like her into this family. You know that better than anyone." The call ended abruptly. Daniel stood alone on the silent morning street, staring at his darkened phone, feeling as though he were falling into an ever deeper abyss. Meanwhile, in the Harrison mansion's cavernous parlor, Vincent set his phone down with a malicious smile. He knew his brother's soft heart all too well, how easily Daniel could be swayed by sentiment. But Vincent wouldn't allow it. Daniel needed to be reminded where his loyalties lay, no matter the cost. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison sat opposite Vincent. Mr. Harrison, ever the patriarch, spoke in measured tones. "Are you certain about these details, Vincent?" Vincent handed over a dossier, confidence shining in his eyes. "Absolutely, Father. She's just a humble teacher from a modest background. Hardly someone we should regard, but enough to disgrace our name if the relationship went public." Mrs. Harrison frowned in disgust. "Daniel has always been headstrong, but I never imagined he'd go this far. A woman like that must never join our family." Vincent nodded, stoking the fire. "We must act now before Daniel slips further from our control. Mother, Father, make one thing crystal clear to him. End this nonsense or lose everything we've granted him." Mr. Harrison inclined his head solemnly. "We'll give him one final warning. If he refuses to end this, he'll forfeit every privilege and learn that love means nothing against power and wealth." Vincent's victorious smile widened. Step one was complete. He knew Daniel's heart, vulnerable, easily pressured. Just one more nudge, and Daniel would abandon this reckless affair. Back on the street, Daniel remained rooted in place as Vincent's harsh words echoed in his mind. He was caught between duty to the family that had built him, and never truly loved him, and Maya, the woman whose warmth and sincerity had awakened his heart. He looked back toward the small building where Maya still slept, her gentle smile and earnest eyes vivid in his memory. His chest tightened. He knew every choice from here on would demand a steep price. For the first time, Daniel realized life wasn't merely numbers on a balance sheet or cold corporate decisions. The genuine love he'd discovered with Maya faced its greatest test yet. The family's machinations, their ruthless pressure, the very forces he'd believed he could never face. He inhaled deeply, resolve hardening in his gaze. This battle was just beginning, and he would steel himself for whatever lay ahead. For Maya, and for himself, he would find the strength, even if it meant sacrificing everything he once held dear. Outside, the season's first snowflakes drifted down, soft and silent, a quiet reminder that the real storm was still approaching. Despite the storm his family had unleashed, Daniel couldn't extinguish the fierce longing burning quietly in his heart. With each passing day, Vincent's vicious warnings and his parents' crushing pressure only made him appreciate the true love he'd found with Maya, love worth sacrificing everything for. Now, every meeting between Daniel and Maya had to be clandestine. Shaded alleyways and nearly empty cafes became their only sanctuaries, where they stole moments together. Though the secrecy was difficult, every second with Maya strengthened Daniel's resolve, giving him the courage to face the invisible burdens that trailed him every minute. Daniel knew Vincent hadn't abandoned his plan. His brother, like a patient wolf stalking its prey, watched silently for the slightest mistake to strike. Vincent's cold, threatening calls came regularly, each one designed to shake Daniel's faith and force him to abandon what the family deemed unworthy. "Don't think you can hide forever, Daniel," Vincent once warned, his voice as sharp as a blade. "I won't stop until you see that she'll bring ruin on all of us." But each time, Maya's image, her gentle eyes, her sincere smile, her extraordinary strength and compassion blazed vividly in Daniel's mind. That vision renewed his determination. He was willing to face any consequence to protect their love. Christmas approached, almost exactly 1 year since fate brought Maya and Daniel together on that frozen park bench. Daniel decided that, at least once, he would do something truly special to show the depth of his feelings, no matter how dangerous it might be. On Christmas Eve, as soft snow blanketed the quiet street, Daniel secretly prepared a gift he knew would make Maya happy. He carefully chose a fresh, aromatic Christmas tree, the very kind Maya had always dreamed of but never dared imagine owning. He also found a beautiful, creamy cable-knit scarf, one Maya had once admired in a little shop window, her eyes lighting up with longing before she hurried away, convinced she didn't deserve it. When night fell, Daniel gently carried the tree and the wrapped scarf to Maya's apartment door. His heart pounded as the door opened and her surprised, joyous face appeared. Maya's warm brown eyes glistened with tears as she saw Daniel standing there with the vibrant tree and the small package in his hands. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you shouldn't have." Daniel offered her a tender, determined smile. "You deserve this, Maya. You deserve all the best in the world." As Maya lifted the scarf from its box, she caressed the soft-knit happiness and gratitude flooding her heart. It wasn't the gift's value that mattered, but the fact that Daniel remembered every small detail of her life. Things no one had ever done for her before. Yet, in the shadow of a parked black car a few blocks away, Vincent's cold gaze watched the scene through the tinted window. His anger had faded, replaced by a chilling calm as he plotted his decisive move. He pulled out his phone and spoke softly, but with deadly intent. "Got clear shots?" "Crystal clear, sir," came the obedient reply. "Excellent," Vincent murmured, satisfaction curling at his lips. "Send those photos to my father first thing tomorrow. Let him see Daniel choose that cheap affair over his own family." He hung up, resolve shining in his eyes. Once his parents saw those pictures, Daniel would lose every family privilege. Then Vincent would have no rival. The Harrison empire would be entirely his. Inside the little apartment, Daniel remained blissfully unaware of the dark plot unfolding against him. He simply wrapped his arms around Maya, feeling her warmth thaw the cold he had long lived with. Maya, no matter what happens, remember I'm always by your side, Daniel whispered gently. I don't care what I might lose as long as you're with me. Maya smiled, tears of joy sparkling in her eyes. She looked up at Daniel with unshakable certainty. We will face it all together, Daniel, as long as we have each other. Outside the window, Christmas snowflakes continued to drift down quietly, witnesses to this rare moment of happiness, and a reminder that many trials and fierce storms still lay ahead. Daniel and Maya knew that today's choice would lead them into a new world of challenges, but they also understood that anything truly worth having was worth fighting for. Despite the storm my family has unleashed on my life, I can't extinguish the fierce longing that quietly burns in my heart. With each passing day, Vincent's poisonous warnings and my parents' crushing pressure only make me cherish the true love I found with Maya, a love worth trading everything for. Now, every meeting between Maya and me must be in secret. Shaded alleyways and nearly empty cafes are our only sanctuaries, where we steal precious moments together. Though it's difficult, every second with Maya strengthens me and gives me the courage to face the unseen burdens dogging me every hour of every day. I know Vincent never abandoned his plan. Like a patient wolf stalking its prey, he watches silently for the smallest mistake. His cold, threatening calls come regularly, each one designed to shake me loose, to make me abandon the love my family deems unworthy. Don't think you can hide forever, Daniel, Vincent once warned, his voice sharp as a blade. I won't stop until you see that she'll bring ruin upon all of us. But every time Maya's image blazes before me, her gentle eyes, her heartfelt smile, and the extraordinary strength of her compassionate soul. That vision reinforces my resolve. I'm willing to face any consequence to protect this love. Christmas is approaching, almost exactly 1 year since fate first brought Maya and me together on that frozen park bench. I've decided that, even if just once, I will do something truly special to show her how deeply I feel, no matter how dangerous it might be. On Christmas Eve, as soft snow blanketed the quiet street, I secretly prepared a gift I knew would make her happy. I carefully chose a fresh, fragrant Christmas tree, the very kind Maya had always dreamed of but never dared imagine owning. I also found a beautiful, creamy cable-knit scarf, one she'd once glimpsed in a little shop window, her eyes lighting up with longing before she hurried away, convinced she didn't deserve it. When night fell, I gently carried the tree and the scarf to her apartment door. My heart pounded as the door opened and her surprised, delighted face appeared. Maya's warm brown eyes glistened with tears when she saw me standing there, tree and gift in hand. "Daniel," she whispered, voice trembling with emotion, "you shouldn't have." I offered her a tender, determined smile. "You deserve this, Maya. You deserve all the best this world has to offer." As she opened the box and caressed the soft scarf, happiness and gratitude flooded her heart. It wasn't the gift's price that mattered, but the fact that I'd remembered every small detail of her life, things no one had ever done for her before. Yet, in the shadows of a parked black car a few blocks away, Vincent's cold gaze watched through the tinted window. His anger had faded, replaced by a terrifyingly calm resolve as he prepared his decisive move. He took out his phone and spoke softly, but with deadly intent. "Did you get clear shots?" "Crystal clear, sir," came the obedient reply. "Excellent," Vincent murmured, a cruel satisfaction curling his lips. "Send those photos to my father first thing tomorrow. Let him see Daniel choose that cheap affair over his own family." He hung up, determination shining in his eyes. Once my parents saw those pictures, I would lose every privilege they'd granted me. Then Vincent would have no rival. He'd control the Harrison empire completely. Inside Maya's cozy apartment, I remained blissfully unaware of the dark plot unfolding against me. I simply wrapped my arms around her, feeling her warmth thaw the lifelong cold inside me. Maya, no matter what happens, remember, I'll always stand by you. I whispered softly. I don't care what I might lose, as long as you're with me. Maya smiled, tears of joy sparkling in her eyes. She looked up at me with unshakable certainty. We will get through this together, Daniel, as long as we have each other. Outside the window, Christmas snowflakes continued to drift down quietly, witnesses to this rare moment of happiness, and a solemn reminder that fierce storms still lie ahead. But Daniel and Maya understood that anything truly worth having is worth fighting for, together. The apartment door had barely clicked shut behind him when Maya's eyes still sparkled with lingering joy. But at an airport thousands of miles away, Daniel hurried toward the check-in counter, his face tense. His heart felt squeezed by the pressure of time. Everything was working against him. No sooner had he booked an emergency flight to get back to Maya than the airport's large departure board flashed red with an alarming notice. All flights delayed due to an unexpected snowstorm. It was like a bucket of ice water to his chest. He couldn't believe this cruel twist of fate was still testing his fragile love. With no other option, Daniel tried calling Maya to explain, but her phone went straight to voicemail, as if destiny itself were blocking their connection. He stood frozen amid the chaotic crowd, staring hopelessly out at the swirling snow that obscured every bit of hope. In that moment, Daniel realized he might lose everything, not just his status and family, but most importantly, Maya, the one person who had shown him true happiness. Meanwhile, in her little apartment, Maya sat quietly at the meticulously decorated table, which now looked forlorn. The candles had almost burned down, her birthday cake had grown cold, and her phone lay silent. No messages, no calls from Daniel. Painful memories from her past crept into Maya's mind. Moments she'd been abandoned, promises forgotten, and the sting of never being anyone's priority. Tears fell silently, merging with the soft glow of the room, and weighing heavily on her heart. She began to blame herself. Perhaps she'd been naive to believe Daniel would be different from the others, to think a successful, wealthy man would truly value an ordinary girl like her. Each thought felt like a cold blade cutting deeper into her soul. Back at the airport, Daniel paced before the electronic board, his mind a tempest. Then his phone buzzed. Vincent was calling. "I hear your flight's been delayed," Vincent said, his tone smug and satisfied. "What else do you want, Vincent?" Daniel shot back angrily, every word laced with indignation. "I want nothing, Daniel," Vincent replied calmly. "I'm just reminding you that you chose the wrong path from the start. You really thought this love would conquer all? Look at you, desperate at the airport, while Mom and Dad are already moving to strip you of your inheritance. It's time to turn back." Daniel clenched his phone in a fist, fury rising. He inhaled deeply and answered with resolve. "I will never regret my choice, Vincent. You don't get it, but true happiness isn't in power or money. I'm getting back to Maya, even if it costs me everything." Vincent chuckled with mockery before hanging up. "Then, face the consequences, little brother." Daniel pocketed his phone, his heart pounding, not with fear but with determination. He couldn't just stand there and wait for a miracle. He had to find another way, a faster way home. Without hesitation, he strode to the airport car rental desk. Despite the dangerous weather, he rented a car and decided to drive to another nearby airport to catch an earlier flight. It was a reckless race against time, but he had no other choice. On the snow-covered, pitch-dark road, Daniel's car sped through the night. His hands shook on the wheel, his heart pounded each beat, and thoughts of Maya pushed him onward. He knew if he failed this time, he would lose her forever. Meanwhile, in the Harrison family's opulent mansion, Vincent sat silently before the fireplace, a cold smile on his lips. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had planned. The harder Daniel fought, the deeper he sank into Vincent's trap. Vincent picked up his phone and called his most trusted assistant. "Keep an eye on Daniel. If he makes any mistakes tonight, let me know immediately. I want to ensure that after tonight my brother has no way back." As the snowstorm howled outside, Daniel hurtled through the darkness with unwavering resolve. He understood that tonight wasn't just a race against time. It was a fight for survival against his family, a battle between true happiness and raw power. Back in her apartment, Maya still sat alone, her heart heavy with pain. She had no idea that somewhere out there, Daniel was risking everything to keep from losing her. At that moment, all she felt was the empty chill of profound disappointment. The last birthday candles had finally gone out, plunging the room into darkness. Maya bowed her head to the table, unable to hold back her tears. She couldn't know that, in the snowy night beyond her window, one man was betting his entire life on a desperate race to save the truest love he'd ever known. As Maya sat quietly at the little birthday table, her heart heavy with disappointment and doubt, the raging snowstorm outside suddenly began to ease, as if someone had shown mercy and stopped punishing the world. She glanced up at the lone, flickering candle on her now cold cake, intending to blow it out, just as she wanted to snuff out the fragile hope left in her heart. But in that moment the doorbell rang, clearly and decisively, making Maya startle. She hesitated, heart pounding as she clung to that tiny spark of hope. With shaking hands, she rose and unlocked the door. When it swung open, Daniel stood there like a miracle in the dark. Snowflakes clung to his hair, his body was frozen, and his breath came in ragged gasps as though he'd just fought a brutal battle. Yet, under the porch light, his eyes glowed with remorse and fierce love for her. In his hand, he held a small box, cradled carefully even though his grip trembled from the cold. "Maya," he whispered, his voice raw with exhaustion but more sincere than ever. Maya froze for a moment before tears burst free, shattering her last defenses. She flung herself into his arms, clutching him as if letting go would mean losing him forever. The warmth of her embrace instantly chased away the bone-deep cold Daniel had endured on his arduous journey. "I thought I wouldn't make it in time," Daniel murmured, voice shaking with emotion. Gently, he handed her the box, his eyes filled with all the love and sincerity he felt. "It's your birthday. I couldn't leave you alone." Maya opened the box with trembling fingers to reveal a delicate silver bracelet, engraved with a simple, heartfelt inscription. "Maya, the one I cannot lose." Those words were Daniel's boldest declaration straight from his heart. Overwhelmed, Maya wept, each tear glistening like a tiny crystal in the muted light. "Daniel," she choked out, voice trembling. "I thought you weren't coming. I was so afraid." He gently cupped her cheek, brushing away her tears with tender resolve in his eyes. "I know I was wrong to be late, but I promise you this. From now on, you'll never have to wait for me again. Even if the whole world turns its back on me, as long as I have you, I can face anything." Daniel's heartfelt vow felt like healing balm to Maya's soul. She looked deep into his eyes, both of them understanding one undeniable truth. They could not live without each other, no matter the trials, pressures, or storms that lay ahead. At that same moment, in the cold luxury of the Harrison mansion, Vincent's assistant called with bad news. Vincent's face darkened when he heard Daniel had succeeded in racing back to Maya's side. "Daniel made it back to her, sir," the assistant reported cautiously. Vincent ground his teeth, clutching his wine glass until it nearly shattered. His perfect plan had once again been undone by his brother's foolish emotions. "I warned him," Vincent said icily, seething with anger. "But it seems Daniel wants to test our patience to the very end. Fine. If he insists on this, we'll show him the consequences of his choice." He slammed the glass onto the table, eyes full of ruthless determination. He knew it was time to deliver the final blow to remove Daniel entirely from the power struggle. He would not let some worthless romance destroy everything he'd fought to build. Back in the little apartment, Daniel and Maya remained wrapped in each other's arms, unaware of Vincent's next sinister move. Gently, Daniel guided Maya to sit beside him, his hand still holding hers, an unspoken promise that this moment was real. "Maya," Daniel said seriously, resolve shining in his clear eyes, "I can't promise the road ahead will be easy. But I know one thing. No matter what happens, I will never give up on you again." Maya nodded, eyes shining with trust and love. "I'll always stand by you, Daniel. We'll face everything together." Their tearful reunion reaffirmed that no matter how great the challenge, as long as they had each other, pain and storms would lose their power. Yet both felt in their hearts that the true battle with the Harrison family was only just beginning, and they would have to be stronger than ever to protect the love they'd fought so hard to reclaim. The sweet moment passed, and Daniel gently squeezed Maya's hand, his gaze firmer than ever. He knew that to truly protect their love, he couldn't keep hiding from his family. This time, he would face them head-on, so they could understand just how important Maya was to him. "I know you've endured so much for me," Daniel began, his voice earnest and full of feeling. "But this time, I want to bring you to meet my parents. I believe that if they truly get to know you, they'll understand." Maya looked at him, worry flickering in her eyes before being replaced by the resolve she always showed him. "We can do this, Daniel. I trust you. I trust us." A few days later, the Harrison mansion felt eerily silent and tense as Daniel and Maya stepped inside. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison sat stiffly on their antique sofa, their eyes cool but curious on the young woman who had driven their son to give up everything they'd always valued most. Vincent sat quietly in the corner, his face a mask of restrained disappointment and anger. He'd never expected Daniel to be bold and stubborn enough to bring Maya back again. "Mom, Dad," Daniel said, his tone respectful but unwavering. "I know you don't agree with my choice, but today I want you to really listen, to understand who Maya is." Maya stepped forward, offering a warm, gentle smile that carried more strength than the Harrisons' cold stares. "I realize I'm not who you hoped Daniel would be with," she said sincerely, "but I love him for who he is, not for what he has. I only ask for a chance to prove that our love is genuine." Mr. Harrison remained expressionless, watching Maya's every move in silence. But Mrs. Harrison's gaze softened as she sensed the sincerity in Maya's voice and eyes. Sensing his mother's change, Vincent sneered. "How touching. But I don't see why we should waste more time on this meaningless charade." Daniel turned to Vincent with steely resolve, his voice cold but clear. "Vincent, I love Maya, and nothing you do will change that. No matter how hard you try to sabotage us, it won't change my feelings." Tension crackled in the room, but Maya spoke up calmly yet powerfully, demanding everyone's attention. "Aunt, uncle, I grew up in poverty and prejudice. I know money and status have never brought true happiness. I can't expect you to trust me right away, but I ask you to trust Daniel, your son, who's fighting with all his heart to protect our love." Mrs. Harrison stared at Maya, struck by the depth of the young woman's words. She remembered a lifetime spent chasing wealth and power, never truly feeling fulfilled. In Maya's clear, honest eyes, she saw her younger self, someone who once longed for love but traded it all for riches and fame. "Perhaps we've been too harsh on Daniel," Mrs. Harrison said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, surprising both Mr. Harrison and Vincent. "What are you saying?" Mr. Harrison asked, frowning, but not outright objecting. "We've always believed that money and status brought happiness," Mrs. Harrison continued gently, her gaze kinder now, "but maybe we were wrong. Daniel deserves the right to choose his own true happiness." Vincent erupted in anger, unable to accept this shift. "Father, Mother, you can't trust her. This will destroy everything our family has built." But Mr. Harrison raised a hand to silence him. Turning to Daniel and Maya, for the first time he saw his son as more mature than ever before, mature in a way he'd never recognized. "Daniel," Mr. Harrison said thoughtfully, his authoritative tone softened by emotion, "are you truly certain of this decision?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Father," Daniel replied immediately, confidence and conviction ringing in his voice. Mr. Harrison was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly, his expression finally gentle. "Then I will respect your choice. Perhaps the path we thought was best is not always the right one." Maya burst into tears, tears of joy and gratitude, while Daniel wrapped her in a loving embrace, his heart lightened by his parents' acceptance. Vincent stood frozen, unable to believe this sudden reversal. All his devious plans had evaporated like mist. In that vast, once chilly mansion, genuine warmth and understanding had at last taken hold. Daniel and Maya exchanged smiles, knowing they'd overcome the greatest challenge to their love. Yet they also understood that though the fiercest storm had passed, its echoes remained, and their journey toward true happiness was only just beginning. The turbulent days and storms of the past gradually receded, giving way to a new Christmas season filled with warmth and hope. 1 year after that fateful moment before Daniel's family, the once cold, stifling mansion had become a place of joyful reunion, where both families, along with their closest friends, gathered together. On that Christmas Eve, the glow of a magnificent tree lit up the expansive living room, laughter and heartfelt conversation echoing through the space, filling it with a coziness the house had never known. Watching from across the room, Mr. and Mrs. Harrison felt for the first time the simple happiness they had once thought money could buy. In a quiet corner, Vincent sat alone, his gaze distant. After everything, he finally understood that he had lost the meaningless battle against his brother's true love. His cold schemes now felt hollow in the face of the unity and strength born of Daniel and Maya's genuine hearts. Deep down, Vincent realized his greatest mistake had been chasing power all his life, and missing out on the real treasures of life. Meanwhile, Daniel moved gently toward Maya, who was chatting cheerfully with mutual friends. He smiled at her, his heart beating as if for the first time. Despite all they'd endured together, he knew tonight he had to do something truly special to forever honor the woman who had transformed his life. When Maya turned and caught Daniel's loving gaze, her heart skipped a beat. He stepped forward and then, to everyone's surprise and delight, slowly dropped to one knee. Silence fell over the room as all eyes fixed on the two of them. Daniel reached into his coat, produced a small box, and opened it, revealing a simple yet elegant ring that caught the soft Christmas tree lights. He took a deep breath and looked straight into Maya's eyes, his voice brimming with sincere love. "Maya, before I met you, I believed happiness lay in power, money, and status. I spent my life chasing those things, only to learn they mean nothing without love in the heart. You, through your honesty and boundless compassion, taught me the true value of happiness." His voice trembled with emotion, yet he continued clearly and earnestly. "Tonight, in front of all the people we love most, I want you to know that you are the one thing I never want to lose. Maya, will you marry me and walk with me into whatever the future holds?" Maya stood, overwhelmed with emotion, tears shining in her eyes. In that moment, every memory of hardship, sleepless nights of worry and hope came flooding back, and all past pain and scars vanished before this powerful, genuine love. "I will, Daniel," Maya whispered, her voice shaking with joy. "I will marry you, forever by your side." The room erupted in applause and cheers, everyone moved by the beauty of the moment. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison exchanged smiles, finally understanding that their son had found the perfect partner to build a life overflowing with love and happiness. Vincent remained silent, but the icy hardness in his eyes had softened, a glimmer of regret for his past mistakes. Gently, Daniel slipped the ring onto Maya's finger. Their eyes locked in a tender, joyful gaze. They knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but together, armed with love and shared commitment, they were ready for anything. Amid the glittering Christmas lights, Daniel and Maya held hands, eyes alight with hope. They had overcome prejudice, turmoil, and every barrier to stand here and prove that true happiness doesn't depend on power or material wealth, but on sincerity, courage, and the heartfelt choices we make. Their story, sparked by a chance meeting on a snowy night, concludes with this beautiful, profound ending, leaving us with a powerful message about genuine love, the strength of compassion, and above all, the bravery it takes to follow your heart. What about you? Would you be willing to risk everything to protect your love, just like Daniel and Maya did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved your heart, please like, share with your loved ones, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales like this. Happy holidays and see you next time.